What is up, Edison Duelists? This is Dionysus, aka Young Puds, and I come to you today not with shameless, hypebeast Gigavise content, but instead Gigavise content of a far more serious matter. So, I received this very insightful comment from user Mprone on our Morphing Jar 2 video, and Mprone says, I don't really lose often to Gigavise, but certainly I don't when I see that card. He's referring to Morphing Jar number 2 here. No offense, pal. I like your content. Thank you. That means a lot. But it's getting a bit too polarized lately. You should show how often this deck bricks. Very often, and loses when you don't see back rows removals. Now, I have to be honest with you guys. Mprone makes a very good point. This deck does brick pretty often, and I don't show it nearly as much as I show my wins. Now, I'll tell you, that's why I say this is shameless, hypebeast, Gigavise content. I don't think it would be shameful and not hypebeast at all to show you guys video after video of the deck bricking. However, I do really appreciate this kind of feedback, and I think Mprone is raising a really good point here. So I went into the duel records, and I actually did find that I have played against Mprone on ladder a couple of times. So I thought that we could go ahead and look at both of those matches, see how they turned out, and then come to a conclusion about whether or not Gigavise is actually worth playing at all. So let's jump into this first game here. I actually mixed them up, so I'm not sure which is which. We'll see how these two games turn out. Here we have won the die roll, and we've opened, not the best. No back row removal. Let's note that, but pretty good. We have a super solar nutrient with a tuner, 2 tuners in fact. So that is going to represent Lonefire access. We have fertilizer, DDR. These are going to be good follow-up cards. And we do have a mirror force for defense. So let's see how I go ahead and play out this game. I am going to set the nettles, and then I'm going to super solar right into the Lonefire. We're just going to go for both Lonefires here, and then go directly into the Tytannial. I want to establish early board presence. I can defend it with Mirror Force, and I want to be able to stick Fertilizer, and Tytannial will stop cards like MST. So we're going to pass. Our opponent is going to go. They've opened all right. They have a Heavy Storm. They have a Ryko. They have a Bottomless Trap Hole. They're going to choose to hold the Heavy Storm. Very smart. And they're going to develop the Bottomless. That's going to prevent us from getting a Gigaplant or something like that on board. And then they have the Ryko as well, which will, at the worst, trade 1-for-1 with Tytannial. Great start. We're going to find our way to a Raigeki break. And then here, I'm just going to pass. I have a Raigeki break to perhaps answer this back row. That feels great. No sense committing a Fertilizer when I don't need to. Maybe we could also wait a little longer, find a Supervise. Here our opponent is going to draw a Vayu, the Emblem of Honor, and is going to go ahead and develop the Lila and go ahead and activate the Lila, targeting the Raigeki break. No problem, will chain, getting rid of the Bottomless Trap Hole, and then our opponent is just going to pro set Heavy Storm, pass it back to us. I like this play, very competent. Here we're going to draw Gold Sarcophagus, which goes nicely with the DDR, but I think I'm actually going to go ahead and get a Hidden Armory, because Hidden Armory and Fertilizer is going to represent a full combo with the Lonefire we already have in our graveyard. So let's get that Lila out of the way off the field, shall we? And now we'll pass back to our opponent, who is going to draw a D-Prison, and then they are just going to set the Vayu as well as the D-Prison, establishing a pretty strong board here. Speaking of strong boards, we are going to not attack. No reason to attack into a potential Mirror Force, D-Prison, Ryko, whatever. We'll set the Solemn Judgment, excellent development card, and then pass it back to our opponent. Here our opponent is going to draw a Bottomless Trap Hole and continue their development, and then we draw a fantastic draw, a Supervise. So now we are definitely threatening a very, very powerful board. We are going to Miracle Fertilizer for Lonefire Blossom, and then Lonefire Blossom for Gigaplant. This is going to be met with a Bottomless, and we are going to choose to use Solemn Judgment on that. We have DDR for the future, but I really want this Gigaplant to stick so we can develop our game a little further. We're going to use Supervise with Gigaplant, and then bring back the Nettles. Synchro 8 for the Stardust Dragon, so now we have a clean answer to both D-Prison. as well as Mirror Force, also a clean answer to Raikou that maintains field presence. Supervise is going to activate, so we'll get Gigaplant back. Stardust is also going to insulate against us against additional bottomless, against a torrential. So Hidden Armory going for Supervise. And then here we'll get Copy Plant, and we are going to go ahead and make a Power Tool Dragon. This is going to get us just a little bit more advantage, and then we're going to bring back the Gigaplant. Here we can reveal 2 Supervises and a Mark of the Rose. I'm fine with either, but we do hit the Supervise. That is just fantastic. We'll bring back the Nettles, and I'm not going to Synchro Summon with it. I'm going to leave it on field because I'm anticipating that I'm probably going to have to tribute something for Tytannial. Might as well be Nettles. If the Nettles survives through the battle phase, then I can Synchro Summon with it afterwards, whether that's for a Gotems with the Power Tool or an 8 with the Gigaplant. Here, our Stardust Dragon is going to attack first into this monster that I am fairly certain is Raikou. That will be met with a D-Prison, which of course is why we summoned the Nettles. So, our opponent is going to choose to just mill. That's fantastic for us. And then we're going to attack over the other set with Gigaplant. If our opponent had forced out the Stardust, you know, I might have hesitated to attack further. But getting that Plague Spreader zombie and also those 3 Darks into the graveyard seem well worth it for our opponent. Nevertheless, we are going to swing in for 2300 and 2800 and then pass it back to our opponent. They are going to draw into another D-Prison, and they do have a very live Dark Arm Dragon as well as a very live Chaos Sorcerer, so both of these cards could present problems for us. We're going to let that Dark Arm Dragon summon. Fine, our opponent is going to go to battle phase to attempt to clear that Tytannial off. I think our opponent is thinking that, okay, they can clear the Tytannial, and then maybe Heavy Storm to bait out the Stardust, start using Dad's effects, use Chaos Sorcerer's effect on the Stardust, and then Heavy Storm. That's probably what they were thinking. Seems good to me. Unfortunately, we do have a Mirror Force, and that Mirror Force is going to effectively stop the Dad. Our opponent is going to be able to make an 8, so they could use perhaps Dark End Dragon to clear our board a little more, but we are definitely in the driver's seat, I feel. Our opponent is going to go ahead and decide to make a Colossal Fighter just to put up a wall that we're not going to be able to just swing over. Fortunately for us, however, we do have not 1, but 2, count them, 2 Mark of the Roses left in deck, and that is going to be easy 66%, rounding up to 100% to get that Colossal Fighter out of the way. So we do, of course, find the Mark of the Rose, and that is going to be game 1 for us. So definitely a good game, well played by both players. I would like to point out that we didn't open particularly strong, and we also didn't have any back row sweepers, but we were still able to find our way to a win. However, now our opponent has had the opportunity to side, so we could be in some more serious trouble here. They're going to allure right into a Banished Caius, into the normal summon Dark Grepher, sending a Plague and a Necrogardna. That's a really good setup. It's going to be a lot harder for us to OTK through the Necrogardna, as well as OTK through that set Dimensional Prison. We're going to need something like a giant Trunade to get through that. Here, we're going to go ahead and hit an Armory for a Supervise, and then we are going to hit an Armory again for a second Supervise. So we are getting all set with Supervise, Lonefire in hand. Seems pretty good to me. We are going to Gold Sark for a Miracle Fertilizer, and then we are going to set a Bluffed Super Solar Nutrient. Here, our opponent is going to draw a Rhoda, which is going to be a fantastic draw for them. They will have the Armageddon Knight to dump the Vayu, and then they are going to attack in directly. They probably could have extended a little more here, you know, done something like Grepher, Pitch, Sirocco, and then Vayu Sirocco for Armed Wing, Plague Spreader Zombie, put the Return back on top of the deck, and then special summon the Gale as well. That, let's see, 13 plus 17 here, that would have been 3,000. Armageddon Knight plus Plague Spreader Zombie for Goyo for 28, and then 23 with the Armed Wing. That would have been 8,000 damage. Now, it is a tall order to try and commit that much into a back row when you don't have an answer for it, and you are feeling pretty safe with Necrogardna. So, perfectly fine for our opponent to make the decision that he did. we are still going to take some big damage, and now it is going to be our turn. We are going to say 1 out of 2 turns on Miracle Fertilizer, but hopefully we're not even going to get there. We're going to fire the Giant Trunade, and then we are going to Lone Fire for another Lone Fire for a Gigaplant. We'll equip the Gigaplant with the Supervise. We do have the tools here to make a Colossal Fighter OTK, except that our opponent does not have a strong enough monster, and they also have a Necro Gardener, which is a clean answer to a Colossal Fighter Armory Arm push. So that is totally fine. We are instead just going to go real wide here and try and establish a nice, juicy, delicious type board. I love a delicious board. I don't know about you guys, but you know, when I think of things that are tasty, I think of delicious boards. So let's see if we can make one here. We're going to use that first Supervise to get Tytannial, and then here, because our opponent has a Necro Gardener, we're just going to keep it simple, keep some gas in the tank for the future. Maybe, you know, this is also us making the same mistake our opponent made last turn. Maybe we should have tried to go a little wider here. Maybe we should have tried to put a little more pressure on. Maybe we should have included a Stardust Dragon. Lots of different options here. Our opponent is going to find a Morphing Jar number 2. That is a very good card, and then they are going to go ahead and Synchro Summon right into a Colossal Fighter. What a fantastic way to break our board. Follow up with an Armed Wing. And then they are going to go ahead and use the Plague Spreader Zombie to go right into a Stardust Dragon, just having an even safer board here. And then they are going to beat over the Tytannial and then beat over the Power Tool Dragon. So we still have the Gigaplant, which is fantastic, but now we are going to have to contend with 2 very powerful set cards, as well as our opponent's sturdy Colossal Fighter Stardust Dragon board. This DDR is going to be very nice, but I got to tell you folks, that Miracle Fertilizer that comes to our hand is going to be even nicer. Now, we have a lot of different options here, but I am just going to choose to go ahead and Gigaplant for Copy Plant, and then I am going to Miracle Fertilizer for Lonefire Blossom, Copy Plant, copy Lonefire Blossom's level, and then make a Bryonac here. That is, I'm going to think if I want priority on Bryo, Fertilizer is going to go to the graveyard, and I am just going to decide to Prio discard not 1 but 2 back rows to clear his monsters definitely. So I want those gone, I want those off the field. I'm fine with dealing with anything else that may come up. We're going to swing in for 2300. Our opponent is going to take that. We'll try swinging in for 24, and that is going to be met with Deep Prison. So we do have the Gigaplant banished, nothing to bring back with that Supervise, but I am going to pass. I have another DDR in my hand for later. I have a Supervise, so I am feeling pretty good here. Now our opponent is left with just 2 cards, but these are 2 very powerful cards. That is a Morphing Jar number 2, and that is a Return from the Different Dimension, which is going to bring back a whole bunch of monsters. This is going to be a very powerful push. Very disciplined of our opponent to wait until this turn to use it. And here they are going to go ahead and make Dark End Dragon, which will clear the Bryonac, and then they're going to have enough damage to push in for game. So that'll be that. They did, in fact, win. Morphing Jar number 2 didn't help, but their play that... But I certainly don't when I see that card. So they didn't even need to use it, but they won when they saw Morphing Jar number 2. So definitely a credible comment. Good point, Empron. Here we go. Let us go into game 3 and see how we handle this. We are going to draw a Trap Dust Shoot, which is always beautiful to have right off the bat. We also have the Foolish Burial to go with that DDR Mark of the Rose Supervise combo. So it looks like I have full combo in here. Only thing I can't answer is a bunch of back row. We are going to fire the Trap Dust Shoot right away. Looking at our opponent's hand, we are going to go ahead and put back the Armageddon Knight. Now, folks, I'm actually not so sure if this was correct. I think in this situation, I would want to put back the Dark Armed Dragon. Why would I want to do that? Because this hand that I have is entirely dependent on my opponent having a Dark Armed or a monster on the field. And so that is why, even though they just gunned putting back the Armageddon Knight, I actually tell them that no, we're putting back the Armageddon Knight. Or we're putting back the Dark Armed Dragon. So what happened there, we can even check the log. We didn't point at anything. We just activated Trap Dust Shoot, and our opponent just immediately puts back Armageddonite. So never let your opponent pick for you. Trap Dust Shoot, you get to decide. So here I am going to decide to put back the Dad and give our opponent the Armageddonite. He is going to send a Necrogard to insulate himself from getting blown out. And we are going to draw into a second Supervise. What a fantastic draw, folks. We are going to go ahead and send a Lonefire Blossom. And then we are going to Mark of the Rose. And here, I could immediately start DDRing and go for combo. But playing into 2 back row like that just doesn't seem very good to me. I don't have a back row sweeper. I would rather wait until I can find one. So our opponent is going to bottomless the Gigaplant. And we're just going to pass. There's so many terrible things that this back row could be. And wasting a DDR, discarding a Supervise, that's so costly. No reason at all to do that, folks. We also know what our opponent has, and we know it's not very strong. So we are going to give it back to our opponent. Here we are going to draw into an MST, which is fantastic. We do side into a ton of back row hate against the bird decks like this. So it's not just the Giant Trunade Heavy Storm that we have all sorts of other stuff. Here I am going to go ahead and commit, bringing back the Lonefire Blossom into our second Lonefire Blossom into our Gigaplant. Always a shame to have to discard a Supervise, but here where it is safe, I am perfectly content doing that so we can establish a strong board. We do know about the return and the Lightning Vortex, so whatever I'm doing, you already know it is going to include a Stardust Dragon to play around the Lightning Vortex. When you know your opponent has these things, you get to play around them. That's why Trap Dust Shoot is such a good card. I know a lot of you guys, I see the comments that are telling me that I shouldn't play Trap Dust Shoot, that it's dishonorable, that, you know, it'd be more enjoyable if I wasn't showing Dust Shoot highlights. And I gotta say, I hear those comments. I really understand what you're saying, but I gotta tell you that Trap Dust Shoot is just a really good card. You should be playing it in Edison format. I do think that, I mean, I know it sucks when people flip Dust Shoot on me and I lose my 1 Lonefire Blossom. I know that doesn't feel good, but I do think it, and you can feel free to disagree. Let me know if you disagree, but I do think it makes for an interesting game state where you get perfect information and then you really just get to show off what you can do as a duelist. Because if you have perfect information, provided you're not completely bricked, you should be able to win the game. But it does take, you know, some thought process, and maybe, you know, I have some sort of undiagnosed anxiety disorder. That could be possible, but having perfect information just, it feels really nice to me. So I'm going to keep playing Dust Shoot. Here we're going to pass to our opponent after they Necrogardna. Wise for them to Necrogardna early. Now they can use Return from the Different Dimension to, at the very least, bring back a Necrogardna, live a little bit longer. They're going to set a Sirocco as well as set another card from their hand, so I can be fairly confident that these cards here, at least one of them is going to be Return or Lightning Vortex, but it makes a lot of sense for our opponent to be setting both. So I am feeling pretty good about my knowledge there. Here we are going to Gigaplant for Nettles, and then we are just going to start attacking in. Nettles there, his only job is to be something that we can tribute for Tytannial, so we don't have to tribute something good. I don't want to synchro away my good Gigaplant, and I can't bring back the other one. So we'll hit in for 24 with the Gigaplant, and then our opponent is going to block the Tytannial attack with Necrogardna. So we have enough to force out the Necrogardna and just get it out of the way. So we're going to attack and then attack again. And now we will pass it back to our opponent, who does draw a Royal Oppression far after it could be useful. So we did win there. We did see one answer to back row, which is Mystical Space Typhoon. So that definitely put in a lot of work, MSTing the MST, and we were able to win. So let us see what happens in this other match that I played against the duelist Mpron. Here our opponent is going to start off with an Allure, banishing a Sirocco from their hand, and then setting a Raikou and setting an MST. Here we are going to draw into Heavy Storm for turn and then Upstart for Miracle Fertilizer. This looks really fantastic, folks. I'm just missing a Lonefire Blossom, and I have Raigeki Break, so Dandelion with the Super Solar Nutrient gets me to Lonefire. Lonefire directly gets me to Lonefire. Foolish Burial gets me to Lonefire, and either of the tuners also get me to Lonefire. So Not a perfect opening combo hand, but definitely still really, really strong. Our opponent is going to flip the Raikou. We are going to Tytannial to answer that back row. And answer it we do. Our opponent is going to go ahead and develop the Card Trooper and mill a little bit more and swing into us for 21 points of easy damage. And now, looking at the board state, our opponent has milled Dark Armed and Chaos Sorcerer as well as Return. So lots of very powerful cards milled. I'm feeling very good about my position here. We do draw into a Mark of the Rose, and I am going to decide to Heavy Storm now. I really need this Tytannial to stick. I can see that I'm behind. I need the Card Trooper gone. Our opponent hasn't hit anything super devastating, but I don't want to let them keep milling and find their way to their Vayus, their Sirocco's. So we are just going to Tytannial over the Card Trooper, get that off the field. He does draw a Royal Oppression, a fantastic card at this point in the game. It's going to keep me from extending further. All he has to do now is just make a Cataster. And we are going to have a whole lot of trouble getting over the Cataster. It's going to very neatly answer our Tytannial. We're going to draw a 4th card for turn, and we will show our opponent that we have not drawn anything good here. We're going to Gold Sark for Lonefire. No real other choice. I think we just need to get some action going, and it's just a game of can we live long enough to get the Lonefire up. Our opponent is going to Necro Gardna. One of our main outs for Cataster is just making a big dark monster, pushing over the Cataster, and then pushing with everything else. So Necro Gardna is going to help insulate that Cataster. Very smart play. I gotta say, folks, also that Royal Oppression is going to insulate the Cataster. We're going to take a big bunch of damage. Our opponent's going to set another card. Looks like it's that Pro Set Heavy Storm. Empron does seem to be pretty fond of this. We're going to try and Furt to help us live, but our opponent is going to have the Royal Oppression, and that is going to be GG for us. So let us go right into the next game. We have done some side decking. Can this be enough? You see that we have drawn Future Fusion, so call it Cope if you want, but this is clearly an inferior build of Gigavise. So with this hand, we are going to Future Fusion, revealing Gaia, and here we're actually going to send Alias and Gigaplant. Because I have the Miracle Furt, because I have the Supervise, because I have the Copy Plant, the Future Fusion here is going to help us get into combo. This is a pretty niche use for Future Fusion, but it is perfectly acceptable as well. We're going to Supervise with the Gigaplant that we brought back from Fertilizer to summon the other Gigaplant from our hand, and then we're going to hit an Armory here to get the Copy Plant. So this is going to give us just a little bit stronger of a board. We're going to be able to retain this Gigaplant. We're going to have Fertilizer to use on the next turn, if it can last that long. And then let's see if we can extend it just a little bit further with that Power Tool Dragon. What do you think, folks? We do hit the 1 out of 3, but I'm going to choose to hold it. I could make another Power Tool Dragon. I could make a Stardust, but I'm thinking that I'd rather just have a little more gas in the tank for reserve. Let's see how that works out for us. Our opponent is going to set the Vayu, set the DT, set the Return, and set the Bottomless. So setting all 3, pretty clear we're not going to have Heavy Storm into a situation like this. We are going to get Mark the Rose. We'll start our turn by firing that Power Tool Dragon, revealing the last 3 equips in our deck. We do get the second mark. Perfectly happy to see that. We're going to use the first Gigaplant effect to bring back Copy Plant, and then here we have no more equipped. Well, we have 2 DDRs in deck, but that's not enough to use Power Tool Dragon. So we are going to use it as synchro material for a Stardust Dragon. That is going to be fantastic. And now we're just going to start swinging in. We'll attack with this Gigaplant first. Then we will attack with the other one for 2400. And then we'll go to main phase 2. At this time, we're going to go ahead and normal summon our other Gigaplant. And then just pass the turn. We could try and establish another power tool, but I think I'd rather just have the extra body. Maybe we can do something with it in the future. Really just no reason to not summon it there. Here our opponent is going to draw and set again, and then they are going to go ahead and early on fire the Dust Tornado to keep Gaia off the field. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to allow it with Stardust, and then we are going to drop the Heavy Storm to just sweep the board to get a clean kill. Our opponent is going to scoop, and then we are going to game 3. So this is really the one to decide it all, folks. We've seen 2 matches, and then here we draw a pretty bricked hand. 2 upstarts. Is this going to be enough to unbrick us? Supervise. Well, that's half the combo. Can we get the other half? Dandelion. Ooh, looks like that's the wrong level 3 plant. I'm going to hit an armory here and then just kick myself, because if I had just held it, if I had just held it, you guys, we would have had the super solar and maybe we could have done something. That always feels bad. You know, I think it makes sense to get the DDR here. It's going to pair really well with the Mark of the Rose. It's going to, you know, if we do find a Lonefire, this is good extension, really helps us play through. You know, you can play through one back row with Mark of the Rose DDR, and then we'll play through maybe a second back row with MST. So DDR is also going to make Gold Sarks live as ways into direct Lonefire access. So I can't be too mad for doing it there, but it always hurts when you mill something that you really would have liked to have had. Anyways, we're just going to pass and give it back to our opponent. They are going to draw an MST of their own, fire an Armageddon Knight, sending a Vayu, and then hit us for 1400 points of damage. We're going to draw the second Dandelion, and now I am saying, man, oh man, I really, really wish that I had that Super Solar Nutrient. Here, I do have the read that it is a Raikou, so we're just going to attack into the Raikou with Dandelion. Watch as our opponent mills 3 very scary cards. This card scares me because it means our opponent has Eradicator access. And then we are going to get our 2 tokens up, which is just going to help us live a little bit longer while we search for a combo. Our opponent is going to draw into an MST, and MST Dust Tornado are not just excellent cards for removing back row against Gigavise, they are interaction that can stop a combo. Our opponent is going to normal summon the Necro Gardener. Both of us are going to lag out, and he is going to kill both of our tokens and set the DT. Here, we do draw the Foolish Burial, which is just fantastic. That is going to make that DDR that we added perfectly pay off. So we're going to Mark the Rose to steal the Necro Gardener, get that out of the way. Opponent's going to let that through, and then we are going to DDR, and of course the DDR is going to be stopped. And so we get our 2 tokens that we are just going to pass back. I think here you probably just want to crash with the Necro Gardener. That was a bit of a mistake on my part, I will admit. However, it's going to end up being the most impactful mistake. So we're definitely in trouble here, folks. I'm needing to find my way to another DDR. I don't have anything great to discard for it. And meanwhile, our opponent is going to be getting a Greffer developed, which is going to find his way into an Elfin the Raven. That's a fantastic card for him. He's going to use the first Vayu effect to develop an Armor Master. And then we are going to get run over to both of our tokens here, as well as taking a ton of damage from the Greffer and the Armor Master. So we would have taken a little less damage with the Necro Gardener, but it still would not have been enough. Here, our opponent's going to set an MST, and that giant Trunade is just going to be far too little, far too late. So it doesn't even matter that we get the Necro Gardener back. We are going to lose this game. So we did, in fact, brick our way into a defeat here against Empron. So we won 1 match, we lost another match, and I think Empron's criticisms are definitely valid. This deck can brick. If you find your sweepers too late, if your opponent has unanswerable back row, you're in trouble. That being said, I do think that against the Bird deck, Gigavise is going to be favored against Vayu Turbo. I think that while our opponent can definitely high roll with some very, very powerful cards, I'm talking Oppression, I'm talking Dad, I'm talking Return from the Different Dimension, I think overall, it's more likely that Gigavise is going to see combo than Vayu Turbo is going to see those powerful cards. And Vayu Turbo does have a lot of very, very slow starts. So I hope you guys enjoyed this very serious, not at all shameless, not at all hype beast, well, it's still Gigavise content. What are you talking about? And I hope you guys join me again tomorrow for some more shameless hypebeast Gigavise content as regularly scheduled. We are going to continue posting these every single day. I hope to have some more interesting, maybe some not dual commentary videos coming for you guys. So look out for those soon. They take a little longer to make than these. So it's just a matter of me finding time in my very busy schedule. I do have a lot of irons in the fire, but I want you guys to know that I love you. and I appreciate you for watching. I would appreciate you even more if you subscribed. If you're already a subscriber, you are super duper appreciated. If you would like to be super duper appreciated, hit that subscribe button, smash that friggin' like button, guy. Drop a comment. Maybe, if you drop a comment like Empron did that really resonates with me, I'll feature you in a video. You ever think about that? Anyways, I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you tomorrow with some more shameless hypebeast Gigavise content. This has been Dionysus, aka Young Puds, signing off today.